What's going on, y'all? It's J.D. PicKell. Today on the Hard Count, we're going to talk about potentially adding BYU to the Big 12 Conference. Before we get into anything else, I just want to take a second and thank everyone who has subscribed to the 365 Sports channel. Obviously been a whirlwind with this OU-UT story, so if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel to stay up with everything fun going on here at 365 Sports. Okay, so to get into it, there has been madness, like we mentioned, in the Big 12 these past few days, this past week or so, really. And the conversation obviously is OU and UT leaving for the SEC, and just for everybody who's a Big 12 fan, this is really a blow to your nostalgia. Like, there is a lot of great memories I have as a football fan growing up, watching Colt McCoy, watching Bryce Petty, watching Sam Bradford. Like, Big 12 football for a lot of us is our childhoods, our college experience, whatever it is. The Big 12 means something to a lot of us. And so I think that's what's really, in a lot of ways, rubbing some of us who aren't directly OU, UT affiliated the wrong way. So I truly do think this is going to be hard to repair this conference when you have that much revenue leaving. But I think one solid step you could take in the right direction is adding a school like BYU. And this is for a couple of reasons. One, they're independent. So they're a free agent essentially in this game. And the athletic director for Boise State, Tom Holmoe, has made it very clear we want to join a Power 5 conference at some point in time. Now, obviously, the biggest thing here is money, right? We've said it once before, money runs everything. And again, I don't think they're going to replace all of what UT and OU brought to the table. Let me rephrase that. I know you can't fix the UT and OU hole that you have in your conference revenue-wise with simply adding a BYU. But again, it's a good step in the right direction. So dream with me here. They bring more money. They would be the largest living alumni in the entire conference if you were to add them. Again, that's with the departure of OU and UT. So there's already a lot of engagement. There's a lot of eyeballs on what BYU brings to the table. They're pretty competitive in just about every sport. It seems like year in and year out, they bring a solid product to the table. So there's a lot of engagement. There's a lot of fans watching. Two, they already bring a good amount of revenue. They have a measly deal with ESPN. I say measly. They're bringing in what's estimated around $10 million a year in revenue. Now, that is, again, not officially reported, but that's what we have estimated based on different factors going into BYU and their market. But $76 million a year is what they're bringing to the table. Again, that's without the support of a conference. So you add BYU to the Big 12, you're bringing in that much revenue, or you're bringing in at least close to that much revenue. And for BYU, it makes sense because you stand to make more money as well. Right now, with OU and UT, with the previous Big 12 TV revenue contract, the Big 12 per school is bringing around $37 million a year. Now, obviously, you subtract Oklahoma, you subtract Texas from that equation, and let's just say you're around $20 million a year. Okay, so you add BYU, you're around $20 million a year. That's still double of what BYU is bringing in revenue-wise. Like, that is a big jump if you're the BYU Cougars. That's money that everyone can make. That's a solid move for both parties. Now, I think it's also a beneficial move for the Big 12 because you need someone like BYU. Like I said, financially, you need someone like BYU to add to your program to bring in some excitement. According to The Athletic, they would be the second most marketable program in the conference behind TCU, obviously having that Dallas market. So you'd get a lot of eyeballs, like I mentioned, financially. Makes a lot of sense. And I think for BYU, this makes a lot of sense as well because of the way that college football is heading with the deregulation of conferences. Deregulation of conferences along with the expansion of the playoffs. So you're going to have a 12-team playoff probably sooner rather than later. And if you're an independent school like BYU, with the way that deregulation is headed, you got to attach yourself to a conference or you risk getting left out. And at this point in time, this is like the perfect opportunity if you're an independent school to jump on board. Obviously, Notre Dame is their own thing. I think they'll hold out for the ACC or the Big Ten or what have you. We'll see what happens there. But for BYU, if you want to be relevant in the landscape of college football long-term, you better attach yourself to a conference because that's a ticket to potentially getting a ticket to the Big 12 playoff, to the college football playoff. And so I think there's a lot of branding here that's important, and it really is kind of like the perfect life raft for both parties. For the Big 12, you get a brand like BYU that's nationally relevant, like we mentioned, and for BYU, you get to have the national presence and the infrastructure of what the Big 12 would bring. Again, that's assuming they're able to add more teams in addition to BYU and stay relevant and stay one of those power conferences, quote unquote. And so the metaphor here to me is like a startup. Like if you're BYU, you are the startup company that has a lot of control, you have a lot of autonomy, you are able to profit from all of your revenue, but there's no shame in selling the startup to a bigger corporation. especially when selling the startup is something that would benefit all parties. You can make the startup more profitable. You have more infrastructure to allow you to accentuate on some strengths you have. And also, you're just able to, as a whole, make more money, which is what, again, this thing is all about when it comes down to realignment. And lastly, I think you're able to have a better product on the field from just a recruiting standpoint. BYU, as it stands right now, the average recruit ranking when it comes down to the 24/7 index is about 83.8. Kansas has been the laughingstock of the Big 12 for I couldn't tell you how long. Their average recruit is 84.3. So it's marginal. It's very, very small. But still, Kansas is able to recruit better than BYU. Doesn't sound right. And I know BYU has different stipulations with their religious standing and the kids they're able to take, but still, you can probably recruit better with the Big 12 tag. Even if you are recruiting to a specific genre of recruit, if you will, you can still probably have more firepower if you're in the Big 12, because there is no way in the universe that Kansas should be recruiting better football players than BYU, especially with the success BYU has had on the field in recent years. Obviously, Zach Wilson being the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. They should recruit better. So when it's all said and done, I know the final argument, the big push away from this happening is going to be, well, BYU is the religious school, and this has been shut down before. Why won't it be shut down now? And again, I just go back to this conversation that college football is changing. Like, it is Darwinism at its finest. It's sink or swim. You have to join a conference or you risk becoming irrelevant. And I think we're going to see Notre Dame do that sooner rather than later as well. But for BYU, you don't have the luxury of an NBC contract like Notre Dame does. You need to jump on board with somebody right now to be nationally relevant. Otherwise, you risk fading into the abyss. And same thing for the Big 12. You better add some big players fast. We've talked about that in previous videos, and we'll continue to talk about that as this realignment conversation continues. But all that's to say, this is a win-win for BYU, a win-win for the Big 12, and everybody will benefit if you add BYU to the Big 12 conference. Now, will it happen? I don't know, but I think it should happen. Big 12, get on the horn, get the Cougars to your conference, and try to save this thing before it's too late. That's it for us here at The Hard Count. Again, subscribe to the channel, like the video. We will keep this party rolling. And as always, we will see y'all next time.